The Nintendo 64 is a console which tends to divide most gamers. Launching back in 1996 as the gaming industry's bread and butter while switching from sprites to polygons, the console represents the first time Nintendo really dropped the ball. Tired of the platform holder's licensing terms, many developers jumped ship to Sony's PlayStation, attracted by fairer deals and cheaper disc-based games. In the meantime, Nintendo doubled down on the esoteric piece of hardware with confusing, bright-coloured controllers that were arguably a little out of step with gaming's aging audience. On the other hand, for many gamers, the Nintendo 64 invokes some of the very warmest and strongest game memories. It was while banishing the console's even three-pronged controller that many of us take our first steps into the three-dimensional gaming world. From the Money Mushroom Kingdoms of Hyrule to the unrivaled excitement of 4-player split screen on Mario Kart and GoldenEye, it holds a special place in many of our hearts. Over this short series of videos, we were looking at 50 of the best games ever released for the Nintendo 64 based on user ratings. Today we look at the first 10 games in the list, ranked from 50 through 41. Number 50, Excitebike 64, rating 7.85 out of 10. Canadian developer Left Field Productions was responsible for this brilliant entry in Nintendo's motocross series. Shifting the gameplay from side-on to behind the rider 3D, it melded the careful piston throttle control of the original game with the subtle mechanics of Wave Race 64 and 1080 snowboarding to produce something just as deep, rewarding and addictive as those races. Number 49, Blast Corps, rating 7.85 out of 10. Blast Corps involves clearing a path for a slow-moving truck carrying a malfunctioning nuclear missile to a safe destination zone. This zone is completely blocked by buildings and other structures ripe for destruction. As with many 64 titles, its early polygonal visuals are arguably looking a bit questionable these days, but don't let it looks put you off. Its incredibly silly concept makes for one of the most fun games on the system. Number 48, Starcraft 64, rating 7.87 out of 10. The Nintendo 64 port of the first entry in Blizzard's franchise was a surprisingly good version of an RTS game which at the time wasn't best suited for consoles. Developer Mass Media Inc. did an incredible job with the port and managed to pack in a split-screen multiplayer mode as well, if you had the expansion pack of course. Starcraft 64 also included some extra missions in addition to the Broad War expansion and gave Nintendo gamers a glimpse of a PC classic on their TV. 47, Snowboard Kidz, rating 7.87 out of 10. A Mario Kart-like racer which subs out karts for boards, this game is the secret best multiplayer racer on the system. It added goofier characters, extra tension and comedy to a familiar formula. The end of the run usually produces hilarious pilots as you scramble for the ski lift and the next lap, with subtle stick controls and great music. It's a real gem. Number 46, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, user rating 7.87 out of 10. Though this couldn't rival F-Zero X in pure performance terms, it was still a very impressive racer which had a progression system featuring purchasable pod enhancements. No, not microtransactions, using an actual in-game currency, a rare thing those days. Based on some of the best bits of the Phantom Menace, it had special two-pod mode similar to GoldenEye which enabled some twin joystick precision that more closely mirrored the controls of the on-screen pods. Watto's banter and post-race rendition of the Cantina theme is also excellent. Number 45, ISS 64, user rating 7.88 out of 10. A brilliant rendition of the most popular team sport in the world, ISS 64 had depth, beauty, accessibility and gloriously entertaining commentary to boot. The FIFA games might be maintaining possession these days, but back in the 90s it was Konami who was really on the ball. Number 44, ISS 98, user rating 7.9 out of 10. Konami's Major Ace studio took the solid foundations of ISS 64 and built upon it with some wonderful additions, including an additional top to bottom view and the appearance of a referee on the pitch. Now, might sound like a tiny and almost insignificant detail, but having a ref on screen blew the minds away back in 1998. A truly beautiful game. 43, Beetle Adventure Racing, user rating 7.9 out of 10. Most people who played Beetle Adventure Racing back in the day probably went in with low expectations. Coming from Paradigm Entertainment, a studio that worked with Nintendo on Pilotwings 64 and F1 World Grand Prix. It's a fun, beautifully constructed little racer that's well worth revisiting today. Number 42, Jetforce Gemini, user rating 7.9 out of 10. An underrated entry in the Railway library, Jetforce Gemini coupled cute design with chunky third-person blasting in a world-hopping quest to defeat insectoid overlord Mizar. Juno, Vila and trusty good boys Lupus. Adventure is not without flaws, but Jetforce Gemini is a surprisingly deep and satisfying one that's worth investigating if you're a rare fan looking for gems that previously passed by you. And number 41, Kirby 64 The Crystal Shards, user rating 7.9 out of 10. In Kirby 64 The Crystal Shard kept the core structure many knew and loved about the Kirby series while glossing it up with a shiny coat of polygonal paint for the new console generation. Kirby's 64-bit foray into the third dimension stands out as one of the more unique entries in the series, feeling somewhat fresh in comparison to the many 2D Kirby platformers and still pleasurable to play to this day. So that's it, so I hope you enjoyed. Of course, punch the like button, comment down below, of course, subscribe to this channel for my Twitter and Instagram links down below as always, and of course we are partnered with TubeBuddy. First link in the description for YouTube link, tag that's fun, all the good stuff, so that's something that you are interested in and will find helpful like I did. First link in the description, trust me, I wonder how you're going to write it. And of course, so I'll partnered on the channel, so when you head down below, hit the join button, support myself and the channel, it'd be greatly appreciated for who and your benefits, but of course you never have to, but if you don't, you have to subscribe and watch the next video. Okay, thanks so much for watching, I'll be Starcraft, so I'll see you all again very soon.